It's time to step behind the scenes and take a closer look at the Owen Sound Attack. This is Bear Tracker Weekly. Here's your host, JC Coots.
Well, hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 28 of the Bear Tracker Weekly Podcast. Recording this podcast on Monday night, March the 30th, right after the Attack's loss, 10-0 loss in Game 3 to the Flint Firebirds. In fact, if you're watching the video version of this podcast, you'll notice I'm still wearing my suit from the Rogers TV broadcast because I've just run down to the basement studio to put together this podcast and get it out as quickly as possible. This was supposed to be a normal episode where we have post-game interviews with players and coaches, which would have been recorded after tonight's Game 3 loss. But understandably, the team did not seem to be in a very talkative mood after tonight's loss on home ice, and that was fine. That was more than okay. I will still chat with the boys after Game 4, regardless of the outcome, whether it happens to be the last game of the season for the Owen Sound Attack, or if it happens to be leading into a Game 5. We'll get post-game reaction and do interviews, and that'll be coming up in the episode that will get released on Thursday after Game 4. But for this one, we've got Game 3, not reaction from after the game, but we do have an interesting episode for you in that before tonight's game, we recorded the Media Room Roundtable live. We did this in one of the rooms at the Bayshore. The Owen Sound Attack, Greg Hoddinott, was gracious enough to get us the room and get it all set up. And we invited you, the podcast listeners and Attack fans, to join us for the live taping with myself, Mark McKelvey, Spencer Byers from Rogers TV, Matt Hermes from 89.3 CFOS, and, of course, Greg Cowan from the Owen Sound Sun-Times. So we set the panel up in front of the room. We had about 10 Attack fans that were there, which was great. We really do thank you for coming early to be a part of it, and thank you for the great questions that we had from the floor and from some Attack fans who sent us some questions on social media. We answered them and talked a little bit more about the Attack and where they're at. So this week, here is the live recording of the Media Room Roundtable from before the game, before Game 3 on Monday afternoon. Well, and welcome to a live taping of the Media Room Roundtable. Thank you, folks, for being here. Thank you to Greg Hoddinott and the Attack for setting this up as we prepare for Game 3 of the first-round quarterfinal series against the Flint Firebirds. And how about those first two games, boys? Let's just start with that for the Media Room Roundtable. Outscored 19-2 through two games in Flint. What did you guys think? Matt, you were there. You experienced it firsthand, calling the game on 89.3 CFOS. What were your thoughts from Flint?
Yeah, I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat it. It was a tough road trip for the Attack to start this series, right? Everyone who listened, watched, or was at the game saw what happened. The Flint Firebirds had their way with the Owen Sound Attack, thoroughly dominated them through games 1 and 2. You said the goal scoring total, they scored 8 times on the power play, 2 shorthanded goals through those 2 games. Really every area of the game, Flint, where they could take advantage of the Attack, they did. So there are parts of the Owen Sound Attack game you look at and you hope to see turn around here in Game 3. Discipline, I think, is one focus for this Owen Sound Attack team. It was their undoing in Game 1. As I watched the game flow of Game 2, I felt like there was a clear focus early in the game on that, but as the goals started to rack up against, they kind of came unglued in that department. So, there's not much to say, right, JC, other than it didn't go well for the Attack through the first 2 games, as we all know.
I want to shout out Matt's weekend, though, because we were talking about our plans, if I was going to join him there in Flint, and I had some other obligations, but this guy left after Game 1. Where'd you drive to? Listowel?
Listowel, yeah.
And then back and forth you went. You did it all yourself. You didn't just ride the bus. Maybe if there was a weekend not to ride the bus, this might have been the one.
Yeah, my daughter had a tournament. Had to be there, right? So
that's it. Dad of the year. But it's interesting to see that these results are kind of similar to what I go back to is the game in late October where Flint just kind of outmuscled and kind of bullied around the Owen Sound Attack. And to me, that was sort of the measuring stick game of where you got to get to. And you weren't there then, and doesn't look like they're there right now. And they're obviously feeling really good, are the Firebirds. What's maybe a little bit concerning for why I don't know if this can really get turned around in this series is just that there's a few players for the Firebirds who've come out just blazing. Your Battaglias, your Thibodeaux, your Hees, as well as Aspinall, who, of course, had a huge season throughout the regular season. But I look at the guys like, and put the note right here, Thibodeaux had played in 14 playoff games before this year. He had just 2 points. Now he's got 6 points in 2 games. So that probably takes a little bit of the weight off of his shoulder. So I expect they're going to come in here, and confidence is through the roof. The biggest thing will be trying to keep things tight, keep things in front of you if you're the Owen Sound D, because as we saw, they just love to jump the D, the Firebirds, and use their speed. I mean, they got a ton of it. Maybe one of the fastest teams in the league.
I think they're looking to you, Greg.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
this is the part where they don't know where it goes.
Yeah. Greg and I got a rock, paper, scissors for. We're too far away.
Down there.
But, no one can. But
you can see his hair.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Exactly. Yeah, you can see the shark fin.
Send the flag out.
But no, I'll be short and sweet. I think the first period's going to be key tonight for the Attack. They were down 8-0 through the first 2 periods in Game 1 and Game 2, letting up 4 goals in each. Different ways, in all honesty, but still down 4-0 after 20. So they got to have a lot better first period if they want to change the result here tonight.
Yeah, have you seen the lines tonight? They got Bowie playing with Max DeLille and Landon Jackman, so that's 2 true rookies and their captain. So they're throwing the noodles at the wall and seeing what sticks right now, it looks like.
That to me screams the future is now, right? And the opportunity, it's got to be there at some point. And I know Matt and I kind of talked about this a lot throughout the course of the second half of the regular season, wanting to see the young guys get a chance and an opportunity. So whether they stick to that or not, we know things can really go in the blender quickly in the playoffs. But if you can see Jackman and DeLille playing, that being Max DeLille, kind of a regular shift, that's great experience for them one way or another.
All right. I just realized, too, I didn't actually introduce the panel to anyone because I just assumed no introduction is needed with you guys. But at the very end of the table, Greg Cowan, Owen Sound Sun Times. Next to him, Matt Hermes, 89.3 CFOS, does all the games on the radio, home and away. And then our Rogers TV crew, of course, Mark McKelvey, Spencer Byers, and myself, JC Coots, also the host of the Bear Tracker Weekly podcast. Again, thanks for being here, guys. And we weren't sure how we were going to handle questions, if we were just going to let people shout out questions. But since there's such a large group here, we could probably just let you guys go ahead and shout it. Do you have any questions? Anybody have any questions?
You did say that to me on the walk when I ran into you in Harrison Park yesterday there, Keith. So, yeah, you're sticking to it, eh?
The coaches made comments like that before, too. Scott Ray said earlier in the season when Windsor was doing really well, he's like, I think Flint's actually a better team than Windsor, and that sticks in my mind.
Amazing, right? You finished 6th, so you finished higher than the other 2 teams you were battling with for positioning, and maybe you got the toughest matchup, especially when you look at the way now Kitchener in Game 2 against Saginaw, it was maybe a bit of a tight affair through 40 minutes, but then in the third they really dominated. Saginaw didn't even get a shot on net in the third period and ends up losing that game. Where you look at Windsor and Guelph, it's clear Windsor is a much better team, but Guelph's hanging in there, right? And I think Windsor's kind of allowing them to hang around, where Flint didn't really dangle that in front of the Attack, at least through these first 2 games. But hey, come back to the Bayshore. It can be a little different now. I really think it could be tonight.
Yeah, Flint's been really bad in the last minute of each game.
Another thing to mention with playing Flint, obviously, back in October, they wouldn't have had Kevin He, they wouldn't have had Jacob Battaglia, they wouldn't have had a couple other big keys, right? Like, yeah, that deadline really helps them out coming into this playoff series.
I think the Owen Sound Attack are better than what they've shown through games 1 and 2. It's a question of whether or not they'll show up in this game here, and Mark touched on it. Hopefully the home crowd and the familiarity of the Bayshore helps that, and the Attack were a better team during the season at home, as most are, so we'll see, right? But certainly, you know, that wasn't the best or even close to the best version of the Attack that we saw through the first 2. The question is whether or not it'll show up in time this week.
I'll go to one of the submitted questions we had. This came from Lucas, and this is
what does JC stand for?
No.
That's a great question, actually.
Unfortunately, we didn't get any softball questions, so this one, bear with me here. I'll read it. It's been 8 years since a playoff round win, and, well, it hasn't been 8 years since a playoff round win, has it?
Round, yes.
A round, it has been 8 years.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry.
Feels like it's been 8 years since I played a round of golf. The weather's getting a little better now, though.
Sounded so angry when you corrected that question.
8 years since a playoff round win, and the team now holds the OHL record with 15 straight playoff losses after Saturday's franchise worst playoff loss The only person involved in all of these feats is Dale DeGray. How can Attack fans have any faith that he can right the ship when he's the architect of this era of Attack futility, and the players have so clearly expressed their dissatisfaction with the direction of the team based on their play?
That's not a softball question.
That's not a softball question.
I want to go first on that and point out, though, this team's been in the playoffs every year.
Year.
They got the second longest active streak in the Ontario Hockey League. And I know people might say, but 8 out of 10 teams make the playoffs. They're not, for the most part, just squeaking by. They're getting into the playoffs. And look at the players that have come through here as well. And Dale DeGray's gone out and drafted a lot of them. And maybe this group that's been put together isn't gelling the way that he would have thought. And he had to make a bold move early in the season, whether you agree with the Michael Deck trade or not. He thought that was the move to make, and you're not going to hit them all out of the park, and I'm not sitting here trying to defend Dale, but I'm just saying that at the end of the day, I look at the talent that's come through here, been developed, gone on to pro careers. There's quite a good list so far, right? And I think there's nobody that's probably feeling this more than him right now. And because of that, I'm not going to take 1 year where someone might say this is a complete disaster. And it has been a long time. I don't disagree. But I look at the teams they've had to run into as well in the first round. But I'm not questioning at least having any faith in Dale DeGray. I saw him this morning at the OHL Cup. He's continuing to plan and continuing to look ahead to how you can make this team better. And I think that trade, for example, the Deck one, whether it worked out or not, that's a bold move. I mean, he took a swing. If it works out, we're saying, what a home run you just hit. And if he doesn't make a move like that and everyone says, oh, we didn't get any bigger, we're still small and we're still getting bullied around the ice. Well, you tried to address a need. Whether it worked out or not, hey, that's where we're at.
I feel like that's a question for a post-mortem, and there's still at least 2 games to go in the playoff series. So it's a tough one to address. Like in my position, I'm never going to put any pressure on anyone's jobs. Certainly the numbers and the history speak for themselves. The recent history of the Owen Sound Attack, it's been, what's the number up to, Greg? 14-27? Is that what it is?
Sounds right, yeah.
4 years almost since they last won a playoff game, and 8 years since a playoff series. So those are things that, as a proud organization and a proud city, which Owen Sound is, that you don't want those tied to your franchise. And Dale DeGray is certainly aware of all that. He knows that, right? He wants his team to win. He wants them to find success. They'll get there. It's a matter of when, not if, for the Owen Sound Attack. The track record is there for the organization, and as Mark rightly pointed out, the team has been in a position to be in the playoffs every year. I know that might not be the thing you hang your hat on in the Ontario Hockey League, because once you're in, it's sometimes tough to win given the opponents and the way the modern OHL lines up. It's things get top-heavy quick around Christmas when the trades start to happen. So I like to think that a lot of the moves that Dale DeGray made this year were with a plan, and the Attack have a stockpile of draft picks for a reason. They're not going to pick 16 players or whatever it is over the next 2 OHL priority selections, so let's wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same line of thinking. These guys are, it's uncomfortable. There seems to be a palpable frustration in the fan base right now, at least the biggest sense I get of it since I've been here. And it does seem like somebody's going to have to carry the cross for this season, whether that's maybe coaches or GMs or some players. There's definitely going to be changes in the offseason. I don't think you can have a season like this and come back with everyone on the roster and go into the season and have anyone feel pretty good about it. So, but it's hard to make decisions from such a place. You got to kind of, like Matt said, it's more for the post-mortem. You got to kind of sit back, look at the moves, look at the last few years. If there is one thing I'll say that has been kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Disheartening, maybe the last.
Write it down.
It's better. That's right. Yeah. Is some players have left here, Carter George this year and Colby Barlow before, like captains of this team, leaders of this team, in ways that weren't great endings to those marriages, for lack of a better term. And I think those things kind of need to be looked at a bit more if you're in a leadership position, I would say.
I mean, I agree that when everything's been said, I think the biggest key is if you're angry as a fan, can you only imagine being the guy in charge? Can you imagine being the guy making the decisions? Because you're the one thinking, when you make the trade for Wesley Royston, man, this move's going to put us over the top. We're going to get fat. We're going to get bigger. We're going to get stronger. We're going to get meaner. And then it immediately falls apart. Like, that can't be more – like, that you're the one with your hands inside.
There's more to that than just one player, right?
Well, that's what I mean, though. But you know what I mean? Like, you're the one – you're the architect. You're the one who watched your structure just fall to the ground. And now you got to pick up the pieces and fix it again. So if you're angry as a fan with no control over, imagine the guy who had the control, how angry he must be, how frustrated he must be with how things have gone and how things have transpired with the 2 7+ game losing streaks. So I would say if you are frustrated, just imagine how the coaching staff and the GM and even the ownership is frustrated.
That question said there's only been kind of one constant person throughout all that. I think Greg Cowan came to town right around the same time the Attack won a playoff series. So
I thought you were throwing Andy Brown under the
no,
bus.
no. I might have been here too. No, come on. I would love to see it again. We just know what this place would be like, right, if it does happen. There would have been pieces there. You're right about that.
Greg Hoddinott's behind you. You can ask him about hanging the could have been banner at the top of the.
And I feel like what you mentioned, though, was the maybe missed opportunities when the window was there. And now it felt like the window's closing. I also think a lot of this has to do with you start the way you did, the way that season started off. If you start 500, it's probably still some disappointments, but it just felt like everything was going 100 miles per hour out of the gate and was heading in the right direction, and obviously took quite the detour.
It's like game 1. Owen Sound, 100 miles per hour out of the gate, two big fights. Julian Brown's banging on the glass like it's the Mighty Ducks, and then we saw what happened. But if you could just hold on to those 6 minutes as Attack fans.
Any more questions, audience? Yeah. Least favorite and most favorite captain.
I don't
know if I have a least
Spencer
favorite.
can answer the least.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
you. I'm happy I get to be one to be negative.
I'm not sure I could think of a least, to be honest. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to remember who all the captains were. They've handed out the seat quite a bit lately.
Okay, wait. Can I go back to when I was a fan?
Of course you can.
There's a lot of recency bias, but I can answer this on just in
Go
terms
ahead.
of captaincy. The Owen Sound Attack last year were in year 1 of sort of a retool, rebuild, whatever you want to call it. And in terms of expectations, I think they outperformed. The playoffs were sort of a goal, but not necessarily a guarantee. And I think their captain in the back half of last season, because Connor Smith, of course, passed the torch to Landon Hookey. I think Landon Hookey had a lot to do with that. He's playing in the American Hockey League now for a reason. He's a pro, and his leadership certainly permeated through what was a very young group during the 2024-25 season. The Attack, and this is not an indictment on Pierce Bowie, who's a 17-year-old in the league right now and just getting his feet wet as a captain of an OHL team. But the Attack don't have that, a veteran overager this year who's been through everything already. So I'll just say Landon Hookey was certainly a really good captain for the Attack.
I would agree with that. I think probably the greatest captain in franchise history you would go with Dan Snyder from the late 90s if you want to do some digging there. In recent years, I look to someone who led by example on the ice in terms of his toughness, and I guess we're probably going back 7-8 years, Jacob Friend. That guy was tough as nails, right? So I got a soft spot for those D-men out there who are just blue-collar, and they just put their work boots on.
Yeah, Jacob Friend was going to be my answer. I don't know if
I stole it. Sorry.
Do you remember Jacob Friend? Yeah. He was the captain when I first got here to work for the newspaper, and from a media side, the captains see our faces more than anyone else because they're the guys that have to speak for the whole team most of the time, and he was always just so mature and honest and a good speaker. And the Owen Sound's actually been lucky that way. A lot of their captains have been really good at interviews and speaking their mind and kind of not holding back. Least favorite, Aiden Dudas. No.
How could you hate that guy?
I really like Aiden. I said the only way I could answer that question is to say a name of a guy who knows I really like him if it ever crosses his desk. So.
The only guy we really haven't mentioned in recent memory is Nick Suzuki, who obviously got traded his year as captain, but
maybe going to go on to be the greatest alumni ever,
well,
right?
Exactly.
So
at this point, he definitely has the inside track with how good he's been with the Canadians.
Yeah, Nick Suzuki was good too, but he's
Guelph alumni.
Yeah.
Hey, don't you start with that. That's like John Tavares with London. It makes my skin crawl.
Guelph champion.
All right. Any other audience questions? And it can really be anything.
Yeah, I think it could be.
You can ask Spencer what his favorite pregame meal is.
What does Spencer put in his hair?
Nothing.
That's a fair point. Ooh. Who wants to start with this?
What's your background? How did you get here, gentlemen?
Greg Cowan.
I grew up. I was a huge sports fan, probably like you. I watched hockey. It was just my life. People were drawing. I always say, people in my classes were drawing pictures of their families and houses. I was doing the Toronto Blue Jays depth chart 1 through 9 and on the field and turning that in. And so I kind of went to school and just made the decision, like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I got to be able to watch or participate in sports sometime for the rest of my life, or I can't picture myself doing another type of job. So I went to Conestoga College for journalism, and then just took a bunch of jobs. Like, I was out in Pincher Creek, Alberta, and then I moved back here, and then this job came up in Owen Sound, and I applied for it and was lucky enough to get it, and I've been here since. So yeah, a lot of moving around, a lot of kind of seizing opportunities that come, and just having a passion for it. That's the biggest thing. The people that stick around in this job, nobody up at this table is making a ton of money, but we're all got big smiles on our face, right? Because we love to do it. So, except for me.
He's making all the money.
He's making tons of money. My story is kind of similar to Greg Cowan's. It was just a passion for sports at a young age that kind of led me down this path. When kids were watching cartoons, I was watching Sports Desk at the time, and made cassette tapes of when I was a kid, calling plays and make my own highlight package. I was always passionate about it, and just made a decision at some point, sort of like how Greg explained, just had a reflection about, well, what am I going to do for 40 hours a week for the rest of my life, and wanted to be around this. So actually started my first media job was Greg Cowan's style job. I was a newspaper writer in Portage La Prairie, Manitoba, and did that for a year and a half or two, somewhere in that neighborhood, before the radio station there offered me a gig, and that led to here, and that eventually led to the opportunity, which I am very grateful to have gotten, to be able to call Owen Sound Attack games on the radio, post-legend in this town, Fred Wallace, and everything kind of just lined up for me, so I'm very fortunate and just super happy every day to be able to come to work and do this.
Fred Wallace gave me a lot of help, too, at the start. For myself, just like these guys, you just love sports. You want to be around it in some aspect. And clearly, we decided to go into this instead of being pro athletes. I mean, it was – but
50-50, right?
Yeah,
it was close.
I had the opportunity, obviously at a young age, to be around this organization quite a bit, around my grandfather. So always was coming to Owen Sound Attack games, whether they were on the road or up here. But I grew up in Milton, Ontario, and we had a Tier 2 Junior A team that Greg used to be a big fan of, because oddly enough, Greg and I grew up one block away from each other, and we didn't know each other.
Yeah.
And then we met here in Owen Sound, which is kind of unique. But I was doing a lot of timekeeping, and I was maybe 15 years old, and the Junior A team needed a timekeeper one night, so I went. Next thing you know, the PA announcer quits a few games later. They're like, can you be the PA announcer? So I tried it out. I kind of liked it. And here we are ever since. And I will point out, no matter how bad the season might be, I once worked for a team that only won 3 games out of 60. So I'm telling you, it can always be worse. But yeah, then from there I went to school just like these guys.
What the Sarnia Legionnaires said.
Right? That's what I was waiting for, yeah.
I went to Humber College for journalism, and then just kind of took any opportunity I could to call any sports. I did lacrosse in Orangeville at one point, involved in horse racing. I've had called basketball, but hockey is certainly a love. And at an early point when I got into school for this, Fred Wallace gave me an opportunity to come on the radio, do color commentary, and I've been sticking with that, helping out the radio side ever since. And up here in Owen Sound, Manny Pava, who used to call the games, needed a color commentator, and I joined him partway through a season, and then he left at the end of the year to go pursue another job opportunity, and I moved into the play-by-play role and been at it now for, I think, a decade. So it's funny how things work out, but the biggest thing is just putting yourself out there.
Mark made a good point there. Sorry, Spencer, to cut you off, but remember when you said the PA guy left? That happens a lot. That's about seizing entertainment. People will leave because they don't want to work evenings and weekends, right?
Yeah.
And that you got to slide right in there. You got to say, I'll ignore my family for a little bit.
I will follow suit. Sports has been my passion since I was a child. Never could be an athlete. I'm 5'4" without the hair, so athlete was never my avenue. I picked the press box. I started off like Sports Desk, but me was Sportsnet with Jay and Dan, Sports Center with Jay and Dan for most of my childhood, and then I pivoted that into co-oping at Bayshore Broadcasting with Fred Wallace, then co-oping with Rogers TV, where I'm now, where I did anything Mark asked me to. If it was camera, if it was in the control room.
Mark.
Yeah, with Mark Perry, former producer Mark Perry. I did.
Spencer would never
I was
listen to
there
this.
too when you co-opted at Bayshore.
Yes, you
so
did.
You know.
Yes, you did. Yeah, you and I did the election. Yes, when the mayor was elected here in Owen Sound. Yes, we did. I co-opted with Rogers. I volunteer with Rogers. I volunteer with Rogers to this day, and then that led to going to college at the College of Sports Media, doing York University and Sheridan College volleyball, which I still do to this day. I do lacrosse here in Owen Sound, hopefully this summer again, and then obviously attack opportunity. Just eventually the right stars aligned, and I was able to move my way up the ladder, and now here I sit as my first year officially as a host.
He said, come on in.
Yeah, looks obviously played a part for Spencer.
Yeah, the Mohawk was the selling point.
Yeah. And much like all these guys, I started when I was young. I can remember being like 10 years old on the schoolyard I had a recorder, and I would go around and ask other kids questions like, what do you think of the NHL lockout? It was 1994. And they're like, that's dumb. I don't want to talk about that. Can we play hockey instead? I'm like, no, this is more important. And then when I turned 16, I got a chance to do play-by-play for a Junior B final series on my local cable channel in Smiths Falls. And that kind of lit it from there, because I was going to go to university and study to become a lawyer, and then instead it's like, let's go to Algonquin College and study radio broadcasting. So it was a bit of a shift, but I've been super lucky in that I've lived all across Canada. So like Yellowknife, Timmins, Moncton, New Brunswick, Alberta for about 6 to 8 years. I've got lucky enough one year where I got to be a reporter with the Ottawa Senators, so I got to cover them for a season when I was in college. And then the NHL went on strike the next year, and I ended up going to Timmins and doing a morning show. And that's honestly been that was 22 years ago, and I found myself in Owen Sound right when the pandemic started, and eventually got to start doing attack games with the Rogers TV crew. And it's been, I think, 3 years now with the Rogers TV crew, and Matt and I work together at Bayshore in the newsroom together. So it's kind of like the attacker, almost a part of everyday life now, which is kind of really cool to have hockey around and always be there. And even though you can't play the sport, at least you're a part of it. So yeah, it's been a heck of a ride and a lot of fun too.
The biggest sports media thing ever. We spent half the podcast talking about ourselves. Thank you for the question. We love it.
Hey, I didn't sit here and go, I drive from Guelph every home game, guys. Pat me on the back. My girlfriend asked me the other day, are you going to call the games again next season? I'm like, why are you asking that? Of course I am. You'll see me in the spring, and hopefully not till the end of May.
Yeah. Shout out to all of our significant others who know that hockey season is the loneliest season.
Hey, my wife's at the Jays game. She's winning tonight.
The big bucks.
Yeah.
It is about 10 after 6. Are there any more questions from the audience?
Easy yes.
That's a good question. If we had Carter
Did you say
George,
easy yes?
would we be doing any better?
It would be 8.
I'll answer it by saying that Carter George is, probably the best at his position at his age, so he'd make any team better. Would he have changed the outcome of game 1 or 2? Probably not.
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't think he'd change the outcome win-loss, but probably a few less goals against, because he's Carter George, world junior goalie, right? Maybe 6-1 instead of 11-1. Because, I say that kind of jokingly, but there's only so much you can do as a goaltender when those are grade A scoring opportunities that are happening, right? So I don't even want to sound like I'm insulting Kabrowski or Bennett that way. It's just how it is. They haven't played well.
I guess I'll rephrase. I say easy yes because I think, as you guys mentioned, Carter George is just so good that the score lines would be different. Now, would the result be different? No, probably not. But he's also a leader. He was a former assistant captain. You have to assume if you have Carter in that locker room, things are probably a little bit different.
Yeah. Might have been different, but we won't know the answers to these things. Although I will say,
Sioux, by the way,
impressed to see that he's off to a 2-0 lead against London in that series already, with the Sioux Greyhounds now going back home for the next 2 games. That, I guess, is a little bit of a surprise for a series that we thought might go 7, but still obviously could.
Yeah, the fact they got the wins in London was huge.
Yeah.
I thought London would for sure win one of those first 2 games on home ice, and it looks like the Sioux is kind of living up to that roster. They didn't really at the end of the year, but eventually sometimes the cream rises, and that's kind of what's happening, I think, with the Sioux Greyhounds. And for Carter George, like Matt and I have been talking about, I don't know how many times I've sat in the press box at Canada Life Place in London after a game and hearing the buzzing from the fans, and they're flooding the ice, and another attack loss. Carter George had never won a game in that building until Friday night, so I'm sure when he left that night he was feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
I have seen the Attack win a playoff series there, though. A couple times, actually, so it can happen.
All right. Well, gentlemen, it's almost quarter after, and just to let you all know what happens for us, Matt has to run upstairs because his pregame show starts at 6:30, and Greg usually is a guest on that pregame show, so these 2 guys go upstairs.
I'm a guest.
You're the guest on Greg's pregame show. And then the three of us, we go and we record a segment called Game Notes, which actually runs during the second intermission. So that's all pre-recorded while the guys are out on the ice doing their warm-up. So we'll go and do that, and then we'll head up to the booth and just kind of go over all the last-minute lineups and everything we need to know. And then we'll keep our fingers crossed that 14-27 that's written on that whiteboard gets erased, and we go to 0 days since the last playoff win.
Hey, and I hope we can do this again, maybe next season, right?
Yeah.
Something like this.
Yeah, that's fine.
I appreciate everybody that showed up
Yeah,
because
thank
it's nice to know that someone kind of cares what we say.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe you don't actually care, but you're entertained.
Someone listens to the podcast.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Greg Cowan, Matt Hermes, Mark
Thanks,
McKelvey,
JC, for the
Spencer
idea
Byers.
and coordinating everything.
Yeah, thanks,
Yeah,
JC.
JC doing all the work. We just show up.
Thanks, guys. You can all help with Teardown.
Yeah.
Gotta go.
Thank you, everybody. Well, there you have it. That is the live recording of the Media Room Roundtable, recorded on Monday before Game 3. The Attack's 10-0 loss to the Flint Firebirds. Again, want to thank all of the fans that showed up early to be a part of our audience. And again, thank you to the boys on the Media Room Roundtable, Greg, Matt, Mark, Spencer, and myself. That was a lot of fun. In fact, I was talking to Greg Hoddinott after the event, and we definitely will be doing it again, probably early in the season, next season. So we'll give Attack fans another chance to be a part of one of those. We'll definitely do it on a Saturday night next time around too. But I was impressed. Everything seemed to work out. Technically speaking, and everything else, everything seemed to work out. So we'll do another one of those. Thanks again for being a part of it. Thanks, Greg Hoddinott, for setting everything up for that event to take place. And well, here we are, possibly at the end of the road. When you look at the stat line on the series, everything would suggest that Game 4 on Wednesday night is probably going to be the final game of the season. The Attack have now been outscored 29-2 in this series. On the TV broadcast tonight, I was looking back at last year's series because, obviously London had a bit of a powerhouse team that went on to win the Memorial Cup last year. So I think it was expected that the Attack would get swept, as they did last year. But I wanted to know if the games were nearly as lopsided. Because I couldn't remember. And I looked back, and it was something like 6-1 was the first game, 6-3 was game 2, 7-4 I think was game 3, and then ultimately the final game I think was 6-1 or 8-1. It was quite lopsided in the final game. But all in all, added up, the Knights scored 27 goals in that 4-game series. Flint already has 29, and the Attack at least were able to put up a bit of a fight offensively. The wild card, obviously, in that series, too, was the Attack, of course, had Carter George, who they do not have this series, and yikes. We've seen the results so far, but likely going to be your final chance to say goodbye to the boys on Wednesday night. Tickets available at attackhockey.com. As I mentioned earlier, we will have post-game interviews after the game on Wednesday night, possibly for the final time this season. And we won't be able to get a Media Room Roundtable in, unfortunately, on Wednesday. Wednesday, I'm actually going to miss the TV broadcast. I'll be getting to the game quite late on Wednesday because I'm going to the Blue Jays game in Toronto on Wednesday. I have a little tradition with my niece Rachel, who you might have seen her interviewing Braden Rogers on the podcast earlier this season. We started a tradition 4 years ago where I take her out of school and we go to see a Jays game. So this will be year 4 of that tradition. So looking forward to that on Wednesday. But, of course, with my poor planning skills, I did not account for there being an Attack playoff home game that night. So I'll be late to the game, but we'll get to interviews and everything after the game. Next episode will probably be released on Thursday this week. And then we'll probably get one more episode after that. Of course, with some end-of-season reaction. Always nice to interview the general manager at the end of the year. So we'll be talking to Dale DeGray for that final episode. And then looking forward, planning to go to the OHL draft in June and get interviews with all of the new Attack players as they're drafted. So we'll be doing that episode in June, so that'll be a special midsummer episode, and then probably not back until the fall, till the new season. But that's just a programming update on the next few weeks, next few episodes for the podcast. In the meantime, thank you again for listening and or watching, either on Rogers TV Grey County or on YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you like and subscribe so that you don't miss any new episodes, or whenever we do special episodes, or any of the stuff I'm starting to put out. I'm starting to put more stuff out on YouTube, on the YouTube channel, so always good to be subscribed to that. But do appreciate everything and all the feedback and comments. Thank you so much for everything, and we will see you at the rink for Game 4 on Wednesday night. Cheers.
Remember to like, follow, and subscribe at Bear Tracker Pod on social media and wherever you get your podcasts.